Okay, so what we're doing today is talking about water. Water purification. There's two parts to water purification. There's filtration and the actual purification. People tend to get those a little bit confused and not know which to do first. So the filtration part is going to generally get out particulate, and the filtration part is generally going to get out pathogenic issues. So you're going to deal with both. You need to do the filtration to get stuff out, and then whatever's left is going to be purified. You want to purify those biological materials. So one of the ways that we can do that is simply something that we can carry in a pocket. This is a store-bought filter. Of course, you can improvise this. There's a million different ways to purify or filter your water. This guy here that we're going to go over is called the Delta Emergency Water Filter, and it's comprised of basically two different parts, which you can see in the picture. There's a plastic funnel part and then a carbon paper, if you will, component to it. And that's what does the work, is this activated charcoal or activated carbon. What it's been tested for is listed on the back. Now, I don't endorse this. I'm not sponsored by these people, but I do want to test the gear that I like to gamble on, taking out into survival. So we're going to break here, but as you can see, it does at least as much as your typical Sawyer Mini or your Grayl or things like that. This thing claims that it's been tested and that it does every bit of that same stuff. It's a very good option for about $25 from your typical outlets online. So we're going to break here and we're going to go use this thing and show you what it does. This store-bought filter comes with a bag, but what I've done was I've upgraded to a quart-size Ziploc bag. And the reason is because that bag was a little bit cheap. These are going to hold water better, so I can contain the filter unit itself in the bag, but also it doubles as a water collection vessel. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment, somewhere where I won't forget it. Dip into this water without stirring up the water a lot, but this is my collection. This isn't what I'm going to drink out of. This is going to be for our dirty water. So we're just going to collect it. I'm not going to worry too much if there's a lot of big stuff in it. We're going to get that out during the purification and filtration portion of this video. I'm trying to limit how much big stuff I get without stirring up the water. And that'll do for the purpose of this. So we're going to go ahead and relocate, and I'll show you the way that the filter actually sets up and works. Okay, so what we're going to do is set up the filter and show it actually in use. Now this is a store-bought filter. There's lots of ways of getting this job done without a store-bought filter, but for demonstration of this particular one, this is what we're going to need. You have your dirty water vessel, and then you need to either find some trash that's clean enough to use, or if you thought ahead, then you have maybe something like a water bottle, right? And what we need to do, because of the funnel having a larger hole than the diameter of the neck of this bottle, is go ahead and cut the shoulder of this bottle tuck that away. We won't be needing that, at least not yet. Stow our gear, tuck away the trash. Going to open this up a little bit and brace it, because what will happen is it may fall over if we don't kind of find a way to help it stand up a little bit, because this bottle has no rigidity to it, right? So I'm just using a couple wire branches to help keep that from falling over, and hopefully that'll do the work. Then we have our two other main components of the filter itself, and the way that they assemble, I'll show you. Now, this is the part that does the work. This is the carbon paper, right, if you will. That's what that looks like. It just folds up into a triangle for packing away in a cargo pocket, or maybe a small pack, day pack, hiker pack, whatever. So I'll set that aside for the moment and show you how this goes together. So there are three pieces of plastic that create the funnel, which gives it some rigidity. And basically the circle goes into the square, and you do that a couple times. So snap that in, find the next circle and square, snap that circle into that square, and the last one. This is going to create our usable rigid funnel. Now if you look, this hole is larger than what would have been on the neck of the water bottle. So that's why it was important to give ourselves a large enough mouth on this vessel in order to get this to work. So now it just kind of rests on there, and I may have to hold it a little bit. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to slowly and gently pour some water into the filter. And what I don't want is for it to run outside the filter unit. So I'm going to support it a little bit, at least at first. Pour the water in there. And you're going to see it start to drip down into the bottle. I don't need to pour all that in there right now. So if you're looking closely, you'll be able to see the water already dripping into the cup. So I normally say about a 1 drop per second filter, especially when you're looking at things like these gravity-fed store-bought filters. That's going to be probably a good slow filter that's doing the work. If it's going way slow or way fast, you need to evaluate if that thing is still functioning properly. But a good measure of that's going to be maybe the flavor. If you're talking about a carbon-based filter, that's going to draw out a lot of the nasty flavors, like from an earthy pond or lake or something like that. You're also going to see a difference in the coloration. So what was this, urine colored, if you will, is going to come out much clearer and palatable. And so that's going to be a good judge of just how good that filter is working visually. Now, you can't judge water by the cleanliness of the water by the appearance of it necessarily. But when you're employing a filter, that's a pretty good judge of just if it's working or not. So we've got a usable amount of water here. So I'm going to go ahead and not cut the video so you know I ain't fooling, and take a sip of it right here in front of you with no breaks in the camera. Discard the leftovers so you can see this water came out pretty good compared to what we started with. So what we started with and what we ended with. You see all the floaties in this water versus this water here that's nice and clear. All right. That's nice, cool water. And considering the source, when you need to find wild water or you're in an emergency or a survival situation, hopefully you were lucky enough to have either a skill where you can recreate a filter on the fly, or you've had some forethought and brought something that was maybe store-bought with you. And I would encourage you to test those things like I'm testing this. This is like the first phase of testing, just making sure it's not going to crumble, fall apart, that the thing that you think you're investing in is actually going to hold up through a little bit of trial and error, and make sure that it actually functions before I go out into trusting it into the wild somewhere. Because while I know it's portable, and I know that it says that it'll do a certain thing, I have to actually test that for my purposes, and I would encourage anybody to do that with this store-bought unit. So when you select your source of water, something to keep in mind is that water running? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because not all running water makes it clean and just drinkable just because it's running. Some people will say, if it's running water, I trust it. That's not necessarily true. There's a lot of runoff, a lot of chemical contaminants that you need to address and need to think about before you just openly consume water. And that also goes the same for, so we talked about pathogens and then particulate. Pathogens, same thing. It doesn't mean just because it's moving that there's absolutely no pathogens in that water. So we're going to break off right here, but consider the source of the water that you draw from and get the best possible source. If that means you have to dig what's called a sip well or a coyote well near that to get that water to percolate up through and use the surrounding land to get out some of that big stuff, then maybe that's what you do. And we can cover that in a future video. So yeah, we're going to break off here. So let's do a little walk and talk as we wrap up this video. You'd probably wonder, how much does something like this cost? These are relatively inexpensive. They'll give you 75 gallons per filter paper, and there's 2 of them that come in the package. So that's basically 150 gallons, thereabout, total. And you can use them one at a time, or if you're really worried about turbid water or crazy, muddy, whatever mess that your source may give you, you can double up those, and then you're just getting 75 gallons versus that 150 using them individually, if that makes sense. So about $25, and you're in that game. However, I'm not endorsing that. I'm not sponsored to make this video. This is just a trial and a test to see if something that I have that I can just tuck away in a pocket, and that's going to be one of my primary survival needs that's met. I'm just trying to test before I trust, you know, so I encourage everybody to do that. Test of your equipment before you trust it. And so with that, if you have questions or if I missed any information that you're looking to get, just shoot me a comment, let me know, and let me know what filters you enjoy. But this is something a lot of people I don't think have heard of. And so what I like to do is bring new ideas that other people aren't talking about, or maybe something that's not on your radar, or something that relates to a current event to people's awareness, and hopefully help you by, you know, broadening your horizons a little bit. And in the same point in time, it continues to make me sharp and keeps me going with my own training. So I appreciate your views and your likes. If you'd like to come out and train, I'm currently working with Ethos Bushcraft and Survival. We're out here in Central Florida, but we're more than happy to travel. So get with us. Just search us on the interwebs, and we'll see you if you come around.